All right, we're back on episode 89 of Catfish on Ice. We have a really special and awesome guest that we're thrilled to have, and that is Joe Dubin, Big Joe on the go, with us tonight. Big Joe, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
I'm doing fine, guys. Thanks for asking. This is really cool. You guys have a really cool setup here, so it's going to be fun. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
No problem. We are super thrilled. I grew up in Nashville, so I've always been a big fan of your work and everything you do in the Nashville sports media scene. So this is just awesome for me. And Rich, I think you're going to get us started with our first question here for Big Joe.
Yeah, it wasn't really before we get with the actual question. I just wanted to bring up. So I was checking out your blog, and I read your newest entry there, and like you, I get super annoyed when people don't put the shopping carts up. That is my biggest pet peeve in the whole world is walk 10 feet and put the shopping cart up. And I was reading through your blog, and you're absolutely right. It's the small things. It's the little things that people do like that it really shows character. I mean, when you do the right thing. So I really enjoyed that blog.
I was at the grocery store, and I see the guy put the cart right there. And I'm thinking he can't walk 10 feet to do that. We got into a little mini argument. I probably should have kept my mouth shut. But at this point, I was just like, why? He said, why do you care? I'm like, why don't you care? I was just curious about that. Then I started thinking about how many successful people put their card up, and somebody's like, well, I bet you millionaires don't do that. I'm like, you know what? Let's define what successful is.
Absolutely.
Successful could be a friend of mine that runs a farm that's been married for 40 years and got 3 beautiful daughters. To me, that's successful. Yep. He would never do that. Leave the cart right there. So there's only one thing in this world that I cannot stand, and it's lazy people.
Yes,
there's no reason for us to be lazy. So that is laziness at the top of the mountain right there.
It is. Yeah. That's a huge, it not only is it a mess, other people have to clean up, but it bashes into other people's car. And it's just absolutely lazy. But I really enjoyed that because you're absolutely spot on with that. So that was awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we got Joe Dubin with us tonight, and he is part of Mainstreet Nashville, local independent newspaper, correct, Joe?
That is correct. Yeah, we got 15 newspapers all around Middle Tennessee and different communities, and great subscriptions. A lot of people read it. A lot of people still want that physical paper in their hand, and so we get that to them. It's all the counties delivered once a week. They get all the latest news, and and people. Let me tell you what, people love the comic strips. I had no idea people still love comics, but we get people call the office all the time, like, "Hey, are the comics going to be in this week?" Yeah, they'll be in there this week. So, I tell people the printed word is as powerful today as it was 2,000 years ago. It's not going anywhere. There's this one big media conglomerate who has tried to brainwash the last 15 years that has a paper in town. It's not the writer's fault, the people that work here, but the corporate where they say, people don't want to read the paper anymore. It's all digital. That's fine. I read digital too, but people still want to read that paper. I often tell a story about the paper. I don't mean to get off sidetrack here for a second.
No, you're fine.
When my mother passed away 10 years ago, my brother called me over to his house. He said, we got Mom's Foot Locker. I want you to see it. And I found something in there. I'm like, well, I've been to that Foot Locker. I've seen everything. He's like, you need to come see this. So I go to the Foot Locker, I open it, and there's an envelope. He's like, you need to take what's out an envelope and look at it. And my mother had cut out every single article I'd been in high school, whether it's football, baseball, It didn't matter. Every single article I was in, she cut it out. And I started thinking, what about kids today? What do you do? Screenshot it and send it to them? I mean, how does that work?
Yep.
I agree.
People still love to see their kids' names in the paper and even our names in the paper. So I'm so pleased to be over there where I'm allowed to write and do podcasts and do the show we do in the morning. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And to take that a step further, I think people still enjoy collecting books. I collect books and comic books and stuff. People want that physical book. And just having that book, I do read digital stuff, but I've got a whole bookshelf full of books that I collect, and I really enjoy having that physical book instead. So
I always have that. I'd say, always, Rich, always have that passion because you pass it down to your kids, and they pass it down to their kids, and on and on and on. It's never going to go anywhere. So I read books. I got books as well. So just keep that going, and then we'll all be just fine.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Love it. All right, so Joe, to get this going here, really, I want to know, like, tell us about your journey into covering sports. Like, kind of like what got you into the Nashville market. Like, what kind of told you that this is what you wanted to do as far as being in the media and covering sports and getting to where you're at today. Kind of what got it all started for you.
Well, I was working at a company in Dixon as a credit card company, and my job was to sell telecheck machines where you put a check in and it zips the check around back and forth. This was back in October, November of 2005, and I landed the Goodwill account to the whole Southeast. I mean, it was all the Goodwill stores would have these check cashing equipments and credit card processing things. It's a huge deal, and we had a party. The party was the day O.J. Simpson was acquitted. I'll never forget, November of 1995. And we had a big party. And at one point there, I go to the bathroom and I'm washing my hands, excuse me. And I see myself at 65 years old doing the same thing. And I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. So I told my boss that I didn't feel good. He's like, take a week off, go over. Well, this is how the good Lord works. I left there. I'd gone to Sanford. I'd played football there. I enjoyed the nightlife a little bit too much in the late 80s. I had good friends named Jim Beam and Evan Williams who liked to take me out about 4 times a week. Those guys are all – don't become friends with those guys. They're up to no good. So I quit the job, and as I was leaving Dixon, I called my mom, and I said, I need to know your fax number at your office. And she gave it to me. She says, what are you doing? I said, I'll see you in about 45 minutes. Called my brother-in-law. He was loading he was a manager at Overnight Transportation Trucking Company. I said, are you guys hiring? He says, yeah, but it's only 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. It's $12 an hour. I'm like, I'll take it. So I called Sanford. I had my transcripts faxed to my mom's office. My mom said, hey, I got a envelope. There's a paper here for you. I said, hold it. I'm coming to get it. I go get that paper. I go to MTSU. I'm going to enroll. I've got a year and a half left in school, my degree, and I want to get it in broadcasting. And this is how fate and just the good Lord shines on us. I went to MTSU and I filled it. They're like 3:45. I filled up an application real quick and I turned it in, and the lady had shut the door. And I was like, hey, I need to put this in here. I'm registered for spring semester. She's like, well, we close at 4. It's like 4:01. I said, I'm standing right here. And she said, well, we got to go. Then I was like, what I didn't know, guys, it was the last day you could register for spring semester.
Wow.
I had no idea. I took a leap of faith and went down there and did that. But she was still adamant about letting me in. So I borrowed a Lou Holtz story. And I said, ma'am, if the president of the United States was walking in here right now, would you take his application? She's like, well, most certainly. And I said, I can guarantee you the president is not walking in this door right now. Will you take mine? And she had this look on her face and said, wow. Okay, I'll take it. So she took my application. And that's how, if I'd have waited a day later, 30 minutes later, I would have not got into school in the spring. It took 67 hours in the school year, graduated, had an internship at Channel 2, became a cameraman, but I always wanted to do sports. There were never any sports openings, so I went to the general manager and said, I'd like to do something fun and exciting. He's like, well, we don't do that in television. I said, just take a chance on me.
Right.
And I'll tell this
That's
to
awesome.
people all the time. I kept knocking on this door, right? There's an old parable where this guy's crossing the desert with his family. He finds a house. He knocks on the door. Homeowner comes down and says, the only reason I'm opening this door is because you won't stop knocking. And I tell people, never stop knocking on that door. It's going to open. So it opened one led to another. That's how the Big Joe was created at Channel 2 back in 2003. Fast forward a story. It's 2006, and the entire sports department at Channel 2 quits. They all get different jobs. Corey Curtis goes to Virginia. Sarah Walsh goes to D.C. John Dwyer goes to the morning show. They had nobody left. So the GM said, I need you to do sports this weekend. I'm like, man, I'm going to go to the lake this weekend. I don't want to do that. He's like, I'll pay you, do it. So it was a weekend the U.S. was in the World Cup, 2006. And I did not recognize the country they were playing. So my sports cast was like a 3-minute SNL skit on who's playing in World Cup. So we had fun with that. I get off the set. My phone rings. It's the general manager. And I was like, oh, God, what's going to happen now?
Right.
He's like, I have not laughed at a sports cast like that in 20 years. You're hired. And that's how I got into sports. So to make a long story short, when you become an intern, work so hard that when you have to go, they're going to miss you. That's what I tell people all the time. And I just took chances, guys. I mean, look at me. I sent out probably 70 resume tapes. Physical tapes to send to people. And I got rejected every one. I had one guy wrote back and said, hey, I like your energy. I don't like your look. And I was like, that's, you know what? I'm good with that. You sit me back something, I'm fine. And then so I just kept plugging away. And I've wrote about this before, Rich, in one of my blogs. And I said, the only person that should be able to tell you no when you're going your career is yourself.
Yep.
The second
Great
you tell
advice.
yourself no, pack it up and go home. But don't let it get to that point. And just keep doing what you want to do, fighting the whole way, and it'll happen. And, you know, I got told no so many times that it became comical. It became a way of like, all right, how can they tell me no this time? And then finally, all it takes is one yes. Yeah. And I got the yes. I stayed in sports, and I just kept plotting my way through. And thank the Lord, I've been there ever since.
What an awesome freaking story. And Joe, me and you got a couple things in common. I too went to MTSU for broadcast journalism in 2006 to 2010, and I also interned at News 2 in the summer of 2010. So cool stuff.
Were you with me? Were you in sports?
I worked the graveyard shift and got to work with Neil Orn.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember his co-anchor at the time. I want to say her name was Julie. Yes. I worked with them. So yeah. And it was a blast. It was awesome. I did it over the summer right before I graduated from MTSU. And I mean, those are memories that I'll never forget. It was awesome. It was an awesome experience. So
that's what I tell intern. If you're an intern, when I had interns at Channel 4, I was like, when you come in here, learn how to run the camera, learn how to edit, learn how to write. You can write my sportscast. I let them write sportscast, and it was awful. But I said, you know what? My first sportscast writing was awful. I said, but you're learning hands-on experience. Right. You know, it's funny, Chad, you could tell, at least I could, within 30 seconds, whether or not an intern's going to make it or not. Just the way they grasp and want to get it and understand and questions. And, you know, it's funny. I've had some interns and they watch what you do behind the scenes and put a sportscast together. I mean, you got all this. You got to shoot it. You got to write it. You got to edit it. You got to put it together, cut the sound bites, all for 2 or 3 minutes. And they're all like, that's it. You just get 2 or 3 minutes on TV. And I was like, yeah, there's more to just showing up and reading your copy on there. There's a lot that goes on. So that has weeded out a lot of people throughout the years who just wanted to be on TV. And that's really helpful.
Yeah. My funny moment interning real quick before we go to Rich with our next question is I walked in front of the weather green screen during one of those mid-morning break-ins they do kind of later in the morning after the morning newscast. They'll do like a little jump in of a weather report. I walked in, I didn't really walk into it, but I was standing in, like my body was in the shot. I lost track of where I was standing, and I was so embarrassed. I wanted to crawl into a little hole and never come out. But everyone was actually really nice about it and was like, it happens to the best of them. Like, take it as a learning experience. But I was so embarrassed and got a really good learning lesson from that. But Rich, go ahead with our next question here for
So I was just wondering, over your career, like, what are some of your best memories, and then like memorable athletes and like extra points if it's any Predators players?
Yeah, sure. Rich, what's wrong with your light there, buddy?
I don't know. Is it
going off on your face? Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Let me get engineering working on that.
I guess, yeah. I'll have to send myself a note and check that out.
There's been some fun moments when you look back through the careers. Like, I always remember what comes to mind, like when the Titans in the 99 draft, when they drafted Javon Curse, they were trying to get a linebacker of Ohio State named Andy Katzenmoyer. And I remember being over there, and the Titans wanted this guy so bad. They wanted him so bad. And the pick before they got him, the Patriots took him. So I just remember over there, and the Titans like, well, what's our plan B? Because they didn't have a plan B. And then somebody said, there's this guy at Florida. He's kind of a tweener. I'm not sure if he could play down or play up, but he's really athletic. And that was Javon Curse. So hearing that at the time, they were in a trailer in Bellevue back in 99 for that draft. And so that was a kind of cool moment. And then I was a camera guy, the whole time when the Bush-Gore election of 2000, being involved in that, because Gore had his campaign headquarters here. And,
that's right.
I'm standing there doing live shots as a camera guy next to John Roberts and, John King from CNN. I mean, all these people we see on TV. And that's why I discovered that those reporters, they all wear shorts. None of them very rarely wear suits. So I was like, this is pretty cool. If I become a sports guy, I'm not wearing a suit. I'm going to wear shorts, and which I did 95% of the time. So those are cool things. Going to the Titans for the Super Bowl was cool. Predator moments were, going on the Stanley Cup in 2017 to watch that and go up there at Pittsburgh and see that. And you're not supposed to cheer in the press box, but I think it was game one when Subban's goal was disallowed against Pittsburgh on that Monday night. Right? And
bad memories.
I remember just hitting the desk, and the guy next to me was like, "Hey, no cheering in the press box." I said, "I'm not about to be cheering. I'm about to be screaming because that goal should have counted."
It should have
those
counted.
Are cool moments to see all that behind the scenes. So any kind of a run with the professional sports team, with the Titans did that, and of course the Predators and what they've done is really cool. 2007, we got to go behind the scenes with the Predators when they played in Pittsburgh to watch how they tour and how they get on the road, and everything's organized. I mean, the equipment staff for the Nashville Predators is the undersung heroes because they load everything up, everything there to the rink, and then back on the bus, back on the planes again. So to see that from that perspective was really, really cool. And there's been other moments, that have gone on that have been like hard news moments, which, you don't like to. The Waffle House shooting a few years ago, being immersed in that. Talk about it, Chad. We grew up here. This is our hometown, and you hate to see that stuff that goes on. The tornado of 2020 was brutal just because it destroyed I live a mile and a half from DCA. It destroyed my son's school, and that path went straight through Cookeville and killed 25, 30 people. Yeah. So it wears on you from a standpoint because you hate to see people hurting and their families hurting. So there's a lot of good stories. There's a lot of bad stories. But as somebody who told me years ago when he started in TV that TV reporters should never complain because we all have the front seat to life.
That's true.
That made me realize, we got a pretty cool little job here, but we have a job to do and to tell the story. And, my thing was I wanted to tell positive stories. And luckily working in sports, a lot of times you get to have those positive and fun stories. A quick Predator story for you, which is funny. My favorite Predator of our time was Darcy Hordichuk. And his best friend owned Crocs, the shoe Crocs. So he sent him a big bag one day, and I was walking out, and Darcy said, "Hey, Joe, come over here." He goes, "You want any Crocs?" And I was like, "What? Not really, because they're really ugly." He's like, "What size you wear?" I said, "Well, 13." He throws me like 12 pair of size 13 Crocs. And he says, "You know what? Just take the whole bag. I never saw it. You never saw it. Just take them." So I'm standing there outside the parking lot at Bridgestone with a big duffel bag of Crocs. And so I went and just handed these Crocs, and people went crazy over these Crocs.
That's funny.
And so Darcy Hordichuk, wherever he is now, Darcy, thank you so much because that was very cool. So a lot of fun moments throughout the career.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
All right, so let's get to current times here. So of course, the Preds are playing pretty well this season. I feel like they're playing well ahead of what people expected out of them going into the season. Everyone was billing it as a rebuild type of season. So Joe, we got to ask you: do you think that they're kind of toying with our hearts, or do you think maybe we might be in store for another really special season of Nashville Predators hockey?
Well, first off, as we're taping this on a Thursday, who's coaching the team tonight?
Milwaukee.
They are. That is true. Somebody's playing a trick with. So Milwaukee coaches team down.
They pretty much took all of the Milwaukee Admirals coaches and called them up because the entire Preds coaching staff is literally in the COVID protocols. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of NHL. If so, I would love to hear the story. But
right.
You hear about calling players up, minor league players up all the time, but calling coaches up, it's crazy times we live in for sure.
Well, I love it because they got 35 points right now, and I think rebuilding year. They let some major players go last year, and you think about at some moment. I remember a Predator player tell me years ago who said it's best when nobody knows about it. So it might have been Shea Weber like 10 years ago. Remember when they knocked off Detroit in their first ever playoff win? It's like, we like it when nobody knows about us. And I'm thinking, that's odd. That's kind of weird. And I started thinking, hockey players are different, than baseball and football players. They're just different, and not in a bad way. Just the way that they don't want all the notoriety, at least the ones that I've covered in my time with the Predators. They would like for just let us do our job. Come talk to us after the game. We'll do our thing. But I think it's good. Nobody's talking about the Predators. I mean, really nobody. They go up and knock off New Jersey, the Islanders, and the Rangers. And hottest team in hockey right now. So I just think at some point you got to start looking like, all right, they're doing something here. And I'm an optimist, so I think they're doing something here because nobody's paying attention to them right now.
It's a good point. Very
That
good
is a
point.
very
Yeah,
good
they're not
point.
getting a lot of national recognition for sure right now. Like they're kind of flying under the radar. They've got a lot of good young players that are stepping up that don't have the national notoriety yet, like Tanner Janot and
Yeah.
players like that. But of course, they do still have some of their star players like Philip Forsberg, UC Saros, of course. We're still not sure if Philip Forsberg is going to be a Nashville Predator at the end of the year. That's kind of the main storyline that everyone's not sure about is, are the Predators going to be able to keep Philip Forsberg? He's in a contract year. Will they trade him? He's probably arguably the most known player on the team aside from maybe UC Saros. So
I agree. The question for you guys, and I love this question all the time because, a lot of people pop on the Predators bandwagons the last 4 or 5 years. But for those overall, who would you think is the most popular Nashville Predators player of all time?
Ooh,
Pecorine.
It's got to be Pecorine. It's got to be Pecorine.
He's my favorite anyway.
I think Shea Weber is a very, very close second for me.
I have
as close as you can get.
Upstairs in my son's room, we have a Jordan 2-2 whistle. And
he's up
something
there too.
about Jordan 2-2 in those first years here where he was this guy that was from the village that nobody heard of, and he comes here and just really gave everything for this franchise. I agree. Pecorine is the guy, and he'll be this first statue out there. But to me, what Jordan 2-2 did for this franchise in early years, and no pun intended, but he gave them a fighting chance. Hornacek was telling me one time about some story where somebody went after Korea and knocked Korea out, and Tutu's like, I need on the ice now, and went on the ice and just obliterated some dude. And for something like that, when this hockey was starting out there, he was a guy that a lot of us saw as us. Here's a guy that, wasn't a 4-star hockey player, wasn't the greatest thing that ever came out and put on skates, but for some reason, he will always have a place in my heart as the greatest Nashville Predator. It's not really what he did on the ice, just the impact he had in the community with people. And you still see number 22 jerseys around everything. But yeah, I agree. Pekka is. But man, I hope we never lose sight of what Jordan 2-2 did for this franchise.
Oh yeah, and I think they're kind of getting back to that way of playing because like they all stick up for each other now, which like the past few seasons, starting basically the second half of last season, they all started just sticking up for each other and playing for each other and helping out more than they ever had, in the past previous 2 seasons at least. So it's good to see them get back to that, playing that style of hockey.
Good, it is.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable.
Jordan 2-2's story is absolutely incredible. His journey of battling addiction and just the human element story of Jordan 2-2 is something that if people have not looked into it, they need to look up Jordan 2-2's story, especially after hockey. He is a very, very inspirational
I agree.
Player and person in general. Just take hockey part out of it. He's just a very inspirational person. So, Jordan 2-2's up there for sure as well. All right, so this has been a lot of fun. This has been we've been joined by Big Joe on the go here tonight. We've been so honored to have him join us and talk a little bit about the ins and outs of the media industry, talk a little Preds hockey. We got a little Titans talk in there as well. It's been a lot of fun, Joe. We really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, guys, thank you. Anytime you need me to come on anything, I appreciate you guys asking me, and really fun time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. All right, this has been episode 89 of Catfish on Ice with Chad Mitten and Rich Howe, brought to you by DraftKings. We will see you next week for a brand new episode. Everyone stay safe and have an awesome weekend.